Welcome in, degenerates. This is Locked In. I'm your host, Mason Cameron at PFF underscore Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta at Vishaal underscore Gupta 95 on Twitter. V, how are you doing? It's week 9. We're officially sort of right there at the halfway point of the season. It has been a ride through the first half. We have learned a lot. How are you doing? How are you living? You ready to make some money this week?
Yep, doing great. We have a pretty solid slate of games this weekend, and yeah, just it's been a super fun season so far. Some unexpected stuff, some stuff we expected. I'm pretty sure by the time we get to the end of the season, most of it's going to look like how we expected in terms of the playoff picture. But it's always nice when you get a couple surprises here and there, like the Colts and teams like that. So, fun start to the season for sure.
Yeah, things have definitely started to sort of regress back to the median there. A lot of things we've expected, and much to my own chagrin, the Kansas City Chiefs look unstoppable again.
Yep.
But that's going to be something that we talk about a little bit later. Because, of course, we have that game on our schedule here. You guys know the game I'm talking about. But first and foremost, if anybody does not know how this goes, we break down our favorite picks of the week, give you our insights on them. But of course, we do not break down every single game. So if you have any games or any questions about bets, make sure you hit us up in our Discord. That's where you get all of our picks from the week. That's where you can ask the fantasy guys any questions on your team, on your lineups, on trade targets, anything like that. And of course, to get in there, you have to become a supporter. Go over to importantnonsense.com or click the link in the description. That'll take you right there. And that gets you access to our Discord where you can do all of those things. But first, V, we have to talk about something that hurt me a little bit. And that was this Thursday night game last night between the Baltimore Ravens and the Miami Dolphins. And the reason why it hurt me was because I was heavy in on the over at 50 and a half. And the Dolphins just did not show up for me. Baltimore
Not even
28.
close. Dude.
Not even close. Baltimore 28. Miami 6. Game total in this one was 50 and a half. Baltimore covered 7.5. And obviously, this game went under. Lamar returned. He looked pretty good. He tossed 4 touchdowns. It looked like they kind of it looked like they were protecting him with the game plan a little bit there right off the bat. They didn't really look like they asked him to do a whole lot, had him get the ball out of his hands pretty quickly. They ran the ball on the ground with Derrick Henry really, really well. He went for 119, and they just didn't really ask him, him and being Lamar, didn't ask him to do too much. And still, comes away with it with 4 touchdowns. Pretty modest passing day, but a lot of scoring. And really, Tua and the Dolphins just couldn't get it going. They looked competitive at points. Like, it wasn't that they just completely no-showed. It's just that they had all of these really high leverage plays, and just none of them went their way. Every single one of them. We had that fumble early. Getting into the red zone, getting inside the 35 multiple times in the first half, coming away with 6 total points on, I think it was 4 trips inside the 30. That's just not going to get it done. A few of those go your way and you're cashing on the over at 50 and a half like I would. But unfortunately, that's the way the cookie crumbles, and they had 6 total points. So V, what did you make of this matchup? Are the Ravens back? I mean, they've looked better defensively. I granted this is a Miami team that is prone to some swings and their own dysfunction of sorts, but Baltimore's looked a lot better over the last few games defensively. You're getting Lamar back; he's looking healthy. I mean, are we going to be looking at this Ravens team that makes a push down the stretch after starting the season 2-5?
1-5, and yeah, I think for sure this they definitely have a chance, and I think part of it is that the rest of the division is kind of shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, you have a bad loss by the Steelers a couple weeks ago on Thursday Night Football, where they kind of just get hammered by Joe Flacco, and then Joe Flacco comes right back and somehow can't beat the Jets at home, and I don't know what that defense is doing, letting Justin Fields and Brees Hall do whatever they wanted on them in the second half. So yeah, if the rest of the division isn't going to do their part and be competitive, then yeah, the Ravens can not only win the division, they have a chance to kind of run away with the division. I mean, they have what, 2 games against Pittsburgh and 2 games against Cincinnati still to play this season. So lots and lots of opportunities for them to, take this and win this and still come out with double-digit wins to end the regular season. So, good for them. Big win last week, big win yesterday. You know, off to a good start for them. And then for the Dolphins, I mean, what can you say? It was barely 2 years ago when they dropped a 70 piece on your Denver Broncos, and now they're firing their GM and they're going to be firing their coach. And then who knows where Tua is going to be? It's just crazy how crazy how small the windows in the NFL are, and you really have to take advantage while you can. Cannot just assume that we have a young quarterback, we have a young coach, things are going to be fine. We're going to have 5, 10, 15 years to figure things out and win a championship. It's not. It doesn't work like that. Unless only for a couple teams here and there can you have prolonged windows. For everybody else, you have to win when you have your chance in those small windows, and if you don't, you're going to be restarting every few years. So tough to see for them, but yeah.
And it's funny that you bring that up because this specific matchup was super interesting when I was breaking it down early in the week with my Thursday night betting preview. It was this matchup has actually been some really, really excuse me, some really, really interesting games. If you remember back a few years ago when they had Brian Flores, this was that game where Brian Flores sent 40 zero blitzes at Lamar Jackson, put him in knots, and the Dolphins sort of won this game that no one was expecting them to win against a white hot Ravens team. And then the next year was that year where they get Mike McDaniel and they just hit the ground running. And that was a game when both of these teams matched up. There was, I think, 700 yards of offense between the two. Tua had, I think it was 469 and 6 touchdowns. It, if you were to tell me at that point that in 2 years this Dolphins team was going to highly, highly struggle to score 6 points on a Thursday night game in the same matchup, I would have laughed in your face. But you just hit the nail on the head. The windows in the NFL are very, very small. There are very few teams that can really get it going. And, kudos to the Ravens because this is something that, we've heard. I've heard at least from a few Ravens fans here and there on Twitter and, Ravens fans that I know personally. Some people were calling for Harbaugh's job and,
Oh yeah,
trying to
for
get,
sure.
and it's, I think that this is a great example of where good coaching gets you the opportunity to make runs like this, where now they're at 3-5, the alarm bells aren't ringing, and we're fully confident that this team can, press forward. And if we look at, this Ravens schedule down the stretch here, they have week 10 at Minnesota. We all know what's happening with Minnesota right now. Week 11 at Cleveland. Jets, Bengals, Pittsburgh, all at home. At Bengals, the Pats, Green Bay, Pittsburgh. Like, it's a couple tough games there at the end of the season to close it out. But really, I mean, they control their destiny in this division
Yeah.
through the back half of the season. And when you talk about it, and they have 3 straight, home games that are very, very winnable. They do control their own destiny. So that's going to be one worth watching. And, you know, unfortunately with Miami, it's not quite looking as good. They just fired Chris
No.
Greer, and they're looking at probably being sellers at the deadline, and every fan base in the NFL is hoping that they can get a hold of Jalen Waddle, and there's a lot going on here. So that's going to be one to watch for. But into our slate for the week, V, I have a burner that I can't wait to talk about. This has to be one of the plays of the week for me, one of my favorite plays, and I can't believe it's funny to me because I continue to feel like odds makers start to figure it last week. I thought they started to figure it out by giving the Colts a 14-point spread, and we talked about that game, and they ended up covering 14 handedly, like we said, and then
Yeah.
we come back, and I get it. They're on the road, and it's 3 points, and that's a a 6 if they're at home, or a pick them on a neutral field, but hey, I just still don't know how you can see what this Pittsburgh team has put up at times versus what this Colts team is about to go put up on them. And I love them. at -3.5 here going into Pittsburgh. Game total on this game, 50.5 points. So under that key number of 51. When we talk about the Colts, they're 6-2 against the spread this season. They're tied for the league lead. There's 67% cover rate on the road, and their average cover margin on the road is 9.3 points. This team is automatic. The Colts just love to build leads through the air, and then they choke the life out of opposing defenses on the ground. It's almost like clockwork. They just rip the top off the defense, and then they're gonna just absolutely cram the ball down your throat. And there's really nothing you can do to stop them. They're just that elite of a team. We talked about this last week, and I'm gonna be probably talking about it as I bet them all every single week this season. Is the Colts EPA per rush? They're higher than 24 teams in passing EPA per play this year. Like, when you can do that, if you let this team take a lead on you, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. You just do not have an opportunity. And frankly, I think that this Steelers team is going to be one that is going to struggle to cover the Colts on the back end. And so, with that, I have a special edition for this show, something that we don't usually do. I have a same game parlay that
All
I
right, let's hear this one.
love for this one. And I have a name for this one, V. You're going to love this one. This is the Pierce the Veil parlay. Get it? Because like
Okay.
the steel curtain, and it's
Yeah.
I'm playing Alec Pierce. We're
I'm
getting a big
guessing
out.
Alec Pierce is going to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, this is gonna be an Alec Pierce. This is an Alec Pierce prop or parlay. So I'm not only confident that they can cover this game at 3. I'm actually gonna move this total, or excuse me, this line to -6.5 for Indy. I'm gonna have Alec Pierce for 100 plus receiving yards and Alec Pierce to find the end zone. Now he hasn't done either of those things this year yet, but we know he's more than capable of these big games and of making it
Yeah.
in the end zone. He had 3 games of 120 last year, and he had 7 scores. I think it's only a matter of time that he finds the end zone and really has a big game. And this is the matchup that is tailor-made for him to really excel. When we talk about Pittsburgh's coverage, they run man coverage at the second highest rate in the NFL. They also run close coverages at an extremely high rate, 65.8%. That's one of the highest rates in the NFL. When we talk about Alec Pierce, this is a guy who absolutely destroys both of those coverages. He is phenomenal, and they love to get him the ball in those positions. Specifically, when we talk about man coverage and middle of the field closed. So single high closed coverages. When we talk about that, he's got to combine 9 explosive receptions, and on man coverage, 20.9 average depth for target, 23.2 average depth of target on closed coverages. And on closed coverages, he's totaling about 3.9 yards per route run, nearly 4 yards per route run, which is phenomenal. And he's getting targeted on over 31% of his routes. So this just proves that this is the guy when they want and they see these coverages and they want to attack downfield. He's the guy that they're looking for to do that. And Pittsburgh has given up plenty of production downfield. They're 28th in explosive pass play rate, so pass plays of 15 or more yards. They've allowed 8 receivers to go over 80 this year, and 4 of those went over 100. Like I said, Pierce hasn't hit 100 yet this season, but we know he's more than capable. I think he can find the end zone for a big touchdown in this game, and I really like his ability to take the top off of this defense. And when we talk about the Steelers in general, it's really been a mixed bag. It's been an incredibly mixed bag. They don't always play super well. They stay competitive at times. They were competitive against a team like Green Bay, and this was another game that we talked about last week when I took Green Bay on the road -3. This is a similar situation where I'm comfortable with taking this team against this opponent on the road because of what we've seen. Like, Green Bay was a team where we talked about it. They played to their opponent every single week and were having trouble covering. And at times, that Pittsburgh game, it looked competitive and it looked close, but the wheels just sort of came off. Now, we could talk about if that had anything to do with, the tension in the air from Rodgers and his old team,
Mhm.
and he really wanted to win. So, but you could tell he was getting flustered on the field. And you can tell that this team is still a receiver away from really being ultra competitive in the passing game. Right now, it's really, if you can get a hold of DK Metcalf and limit explosive plays, you're going to keep them, in check. It's also really much a ball control style offense without the running game. They don't really have a consistency in the running game. They're okay. They're sort of about middle of the road there in a lot of those major facets. But what we're not seeing is that them pushing the ball down the field and running, which is what this Colts team really does well. They're sort of controlling the ball with this short passing game, getting the ball out quick. Now, the Colts don't really have a great defense, and that's a conversation to have as we continue to move down the road. But frankly, I just don't see that being a huge issue. I think they're going to press the issue right out of the gate. They know how they want to win. Put up a lot of points in the first half, passing the ball, and then we're going to run it down your throat and really make the game go quick in the second half, and it's going to get away from you before you have any chance of stopping it. So that's where I'm at with this one. V, are you seeing anything with this matchup? This Colts team has been fun to watch this year, man.
It's been incredible, and as somebody who has Jonathan Taylor on one of their fantasy teams, it has been an incredibly fun season.
Let let me
He just
let me tell you. Sorry to interrupt, but let me tell you a
no, go for it.
trade that somebody sent me for Jonathan Taylor this year.
Oh
That
my god,
this
let's hear this
last
one.
week, this past week. A guy sent me a trade request, Jonathan Taylor, for Nico Collins and DeAndre Swift. I've never rejected something so fast. He sent me a message and
That's
said,
terrible.
"Hey, I'm really interested in Jonathan Taylor. What do you want for him?" And I said, in as few words as possible, not interested in dealing Taylor. Like
Yeah, there you go.
there's no combination of players you could send me to give you what is the best running back in the NFL right now. Sorry, continue.
100% great rejection. Never accept that trade ever. But yeah, it's been incredibly fun to watch him play this season. 3 different games with 3 touchdowns. Just incredible to watch. Alex Pierce parlay sounds like it makes a lot of sense. It seems like every week when you're tuning into Red Zone, he's catching at least 1 or 2 deep bombs down the field. That connection with him and Daniel Jones is really working out this season. And yeah, you 100% nailed the Steelers defense last week when talking about them versus Green Bay, and it seems like you're probably going to be right on this one too against the Colts. It just seems like they're not playing well defensively. They let Joe Flacco kind of torch them a couple weeks ago. Jordan Love had a phenomenal game last week. I don't know what they were doing against Tucker Craft. It seems like he ran the same exact route multiple times, just a little flat route, and they couldn't stop it for whatever reason. It seems like he wasn't even running past the line of scrimmage, and he caught like 100 passes for 1,000 yards on them on that same play. So it seems like they don't play well, and they're not making adjustments either, which is just a bad combo. So yeah, and you don't really like this Pittsburgh team if they're gonna have to play from behind. They abandon the run, and then you're just relying on Rodgers to stay put like behind the line, behind an offensive line that is probably not super great, and obviously he's not very mobile. So it seems like a recipe for disaster. So getting a number as low as 3 makes a ton of sense for a team as good as Indianapolis. So I'll be right there with you on this one.
Yeah, it'll be a good one, and I can't wait to keep watching this Colts team, roll through the AFC. And I really, I can't wait to see, if they're able to pull off some sort of move for a pass rusher, like a high value pass rusher, or maybe even a corner. It's tough because it feels like all the teams with good pass rushers that might be, on sale aren't really dealing them, and then, you
We'll get
know,
Bradley Chubb out of Miami, right? I'm sure
yeah,
they'll be happy to go
you're
right
trying
now.
to get either, maybe Jalen Phillips or Bradley Chubb, or, that would definitely be probably the ad. Or, I was talking to Dalton Wasserman over at PFF. We were talking about potential at cornerback, and, maybe a Cam Taylor Britt would be a good ad there, pair him back with Anarumo, and that would be a good fit. But we have another really good game um, on the books here, and I can't wait to watch it go down. The next game on our list here, V, is one that you are targeting. We have the San Francisco 49ers heading into New York to take on the Giants. San Fran minus 2.5 on the road here. Game total on this one, 48.5. Tell us where your lean is on this one, V.
Yeah, second week in a row, I'm going to take an under in a game involving the San Francisco 49ers. Hit that one last week by the skin of my teeth, got it by just a half a point. Total is 41.5. Game went to 41. Just barely survived that one. But for a lot of the same reasons I took that last week, I'm going to take it again this week at a much higher number at 48.5. Same as last week, Brock Purdy is starting, or I'm sorry, Mac Jones is starting once again. Purdy has already been ruled out for this game. And San Francisco's offense has really struggled, again, with just so many injuries when Mac Jones is playing. In 4 of Mac's 6 starts this season, they have scored 20 points or less. Like I mentioned last week, he had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions in his first start against the Saints. In the 5 starts since then, he has 5 TDs and 5 interceptions. So just not playing well enough. A 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio is just not going to get it done. The Giants do have a much, much worse, defense overall, and especially on the ground, they are not very good as compared to what they faced last week against Houston. But just in general, I think it's going to be tough to score the number of points that's going to be required to hit a number this high. The Giants do have a very good pass rush with guys like Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau. So, if you're in a situation where you're in a lot of passing situations, it could be a tough day for Mac Jones. Giants dealing with a lot of injuries. Obviously, they lost Malik Neighbors earlier in the year, and then they just lost Cam Scatterboo last week to a tough ankle injury. With him out, it could be tough sledding to get this run game going. And if they're not going to get the run game going, I know Dart has done some nice things. He's looked explosive at times. He makes some fun plays, but you don't really want to have to rely solely on that passing attack given the weapons that they have. Tyrone Tracy was good last year, but there was a reason they went out and got somebody else and made somebody else their feature back. So it seems like they have some doubts if he can be the main guy there for the Giants. So just overall, 48.5 seems like a lot. If you don't even feel confident that the Niners can get to 20, it just doesn't make sense for this game for the Giants to be able to get to 28, 29, 30 points for this to hit the over. So I'm going to take the under, just too many points on this total.
Yeah, and this is another one that I've definitely had my eye on too, and it's really it just sucks, man. You don't want to see any guy go down and get hurt the way that Cam Scatterboo did, but like for that guy specifically, it's not just a loss to this Giants team. It's a loss to NFL fans all over the country because man, was he fun to watch and really a big driving force of this offense and where they were able to put up points and really take it to teams that they might not have not supposed to be able to take it to, like the Eagles, some of those matchups.
Mm-hmm.
It was because a guy like that really gave them jolts. And again, it's not really one of those things that we have on the spreadsheet of like momentum or morale, but it's got to be tough for them to go out there knowing that the guy that's been sort of the juice of this team for the last 6 weeks or whatever is now no longer going to be out there for him. So I'm right there with you. I think it's a tough matchup there for them. The concerns that I do have is this 49ers defense isn't really that solid.
No.
It's pretty bad on the back end there too. But there is questions of, like Jackson Dart, he's been playing well. He's definitely a solid passer. But like I said, if you're taking away their ability to run, Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary, they're an okay 1-2 punch, but I really just think that they're an okay group. I don't know that they're going to be this group that's going to really take teams away from, trying to play too high or really, limiting Jackson Dart's opportunities or really keying off of him and what he's going to be able to do. So that's definitely going to be an interesting one. But yeah, the other thing too being is this sort of plays to your point is that, Mac Jones hasn't been great, but they started figuring out something in the running game there, especially since George Kittle came back and giving them that extra guy in the box that's both a threat to catch and to
Mhm.
block and run. Especially against this Giants front that's been a little bit, more susceptible against the run. I see that probably being the way that San Fran wants to attack this Giants defense. And again, if we're going to be running the ball a whole lot, unless they're giving up explosive after explosive, it's going to be a game that sort of moves quickly. And then, at that point, it becomes less opportunities to put up these points and you have to convert. You can't have these situations where we get stalled out and get 3 points. You have to have 7, 7, 7, like pretty
Right.
much every time we had touch the ball. So that's definitely where that makes it a difficult ask too. So I do agree with you there. 48.5 is just it's a high number. And I'm pretty sure that it moved. I'm pretty sure that it started much lower than that early on in the week, I believe. I don't think it shows me the movement here, but no. Doesn't show me the movement here, but I want to say that it was
Yeah.
earlier, but I don't have a beat on that for sure. But anyway, the next game on our list is another one here that I am just loving, and another game that, another team that I'm loving to watch, and that's, performing great against the spread here. We have the Atlanta Falcons heading into New England to take on the Patriots. Patriots -5.5 at home. Game total on this one about 45.5 points. And I mean, what can we say? I'm taking New England -5.5 at home. They are cruising right now. 5 straight wins, 5 straight covers. They're 4-1 against the spread as favorites this season. And that includes 3 covers of games when favored by 5.5 points or more here. And Drake May is adding to his MVP case left and right. He has the highest passing grade in the NFL since week 4 at 90.4. Over that span, the Pats, they've generated the highest EPA per dropback, explosive pass play percentage. And this is just a matchup with an Atlanta coverage unit where they've done pretty well to limit explosive plays, but I don't think that that's going to be the case this week when we talk about what May does really well. He's really good at attacking single high coverages. He's really good at attacking blitzes. And that is what Atlanta does. That's their bread and butter. Highest rate of one high coverages, second highest pass blitz rate in the NFL. I know Atlanta is getting back Michael Penix Jr., Drake London, and that's going to be an improvement over what we saw last week with Kirk Cousins. Now,
Yeah.
to see what they did last week against Miami, if you guys look right here, Miami 34-10, and this was that game at home? I forget.
Yep. That was
That
in
was that
Atlanta.
was in Atlanta, right? So you're literally, and I get it, and this is a team that we just saw score 6 points against the Ravens, against a
Yeah.
defense that was not as good, and they only scored 10. And I get it that that's part of a piece of Miami just loaded up the box and said, "Go ahead, beat us with Kirk Cousins. We dare you." And that's not going to be the case this week where you get Michael Penix Jr. back. But this is still an issue. This team still has issues when they've only scored 10 points in each of their last 2 games. As well, their games on the road have been not great. This is the same team on the road that look at this, scored 10 on the road in San Francisco and was shut out against Carolina. Was shut out
Not
against
good.
Carolina. The big thing for me is that this team scores 17 points per game on the road, and they're minus 0.155 EPA per play. And the Pats hold teams to the 5th lowest touchdown drive percentage in the NFL. They're one of 6 teams to allow under 20% touchdown drive percentage. So if we're talking about that, I just don't see a world where this defense, even though they're likely going to get healthier. I know Jalen Walker's supposed to be back, Billy Bowman's supposed to be back, but I think they're getting somebody else back too. I forget who all was hurt. They were a little bit banged up over the last few weeks, but I get that they're supposed to be healthier. They're going to be healthier on offense. They're going to be healthier on defense. I don't quite think that matters. Those 2 games are games, at least the Carolina game was a game where they were pretty much full strength. And we're talking about this team now in New England that plays well to the strengths of the Falcons, specifically when we talk about on the ground. New England is incredibly strong against the run. They're top 10 in EPA per rush, rushing success rate, and yards per carry allowed with some really phenomenal numbers. They're top 6 in all of those. And we talk about Atlanta. They've covered 1 game when they've rushed for negative EPA per play, And that was against a Commanders team that just could not stop anybody on the back end, who has one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. And they just sort of picked them apart there. Michael Penix had a really big game that day. I don't think we're going to see the same thing from New England. Now, New England has some struggles on the back end, but we know that New England is strong up front against the run. They have not allowed a positive rushing EPA performance to any team in the NFL. That's going to that's going to create a lot of pressure on Penix to come out and really play well against this secondary. And the secondary has played better over the last few weeks. Now, granted, it's against some lesser, teams. If we go and look at some of their games here on, if this is going to want to load, granted, it comes against Cleveland, Tennessee, New Orleans, but it was games like that. It's that sort of model of why they were able to keep Buffalo down and why they were able to absolutely trounce Carolina. So I'm confident that we're going to see a New England team at home who is incredibly strong, and they're going to be playing their best ball, and they're going to have the wind at their backs. So I'm liking the Pats here to cover 5.5. And of course, I like it also because we are getting it under 6.5. I really think that this spread probably should have been closer to 6.5. And getting that full point there is going to be a value to me. You can get it underneath the 6 point touchdown, which isn't quite as much of the key number as like 7, but still a really
Right.
valuable number there. At every point we're getting in that direction is a value. V, are you seeing anything in this matchup that I missed?
Yeah, just starting with Atlanta, just yeah, maybe more one of the more confounding teams in the league so far. Just like you mentioned, just the ups that they've had and then the lows that they've had. Specifically looking at the defensive side of the ball, you had that game a couple of weeks ago on Monday Night Football where they absolutely shut down Josh Allen, held him to 14 points, forced multiple turnovers, were sacking him left and right. You followed it up. You go into San Francisco. You have a tough offensive showing that day, but your defense still played overall pretty well. You held them to 20 points. That's going to be a win on most Sundays for a defense holding opposing offenses to that few points. But then you come back the following week and you get torched by Tua, who has struggled all season. He puts up 4 touchdowns on you. Like, no matter what injuries you're suffering, you can't allow that kind of performance to occur at home. So it's like you just don't know which defense is going to show up any given week because, what they did to, Minnesota to start the season, and then, what they've done some other performances, they have guys who can rush the passer. We have seen it. They have improved dramatically this season as compared to last year. So we just need to see it on a more consistent basis. It's just not something you can trust right now. So it makes it tough to take them. And then on the flip side, we talked about it last week. I had the Patriots -7 against Cleveland, and we both agreed that was kind of a disrespectful line because that was a Patriots team at home against a bad Cleveland team, and they proved us right. They absolutely blew the doors off of the Browns, and we come back, and it still feels like a little bit of a disrespectful line at 5.5. They are once again at home against a team that is, they're not as bad as the Browns, but they're closer to the Browns than they are to the top end of the league right now, just because of the inconsistencies that they've shown. So a number at 5.5 is just it's bizarre. I don't know if they just don't trust New England long term because it's just a new team and that they haven't seen it before, or if they know something that we don't, because these lines are very suspicious the last couple of weeks for the Patriots. You would think a team that has done what they've done when they've gone into Buffalo and shut down Josh Allen, you would get a little bit more respect. But yeah, maybe it's going to take a couple more performances, blowout performances for people to start giving them the credit. So yeah, just a strange line in my opinion.
And I'll take the disrespect because we'll keep profiting off of it for sure.
Sure.
Because we're gonna keep hammering them every time that they're not given the proper respect. And I think you hit the nail on the head too, is that this Falcons team is closer to the Browns than they are the upper echelon of the NFL. Now that sounds a little bit disrespectful, but that's frankly what a lot of their numbers say, particularly when they cannot run the ball. If they can't get if they can't get Bijan Robinson going on the ground, I can't get him heavily involved, whether it be in the passing game or the running game. Like the wheels fall off on this team, and I think that they're going to be behind quite a bit, and I think they're going to have to throw Bijan the ball, and I actually like Bijan to go over 4.5 receptions in this game because I think they're going to be playing from behind quite a bit and not going to be able to run the ball in any single way. So
Just
really,
last thing on this one, Stevenson got ruled out for the Patriots, so
yep.
it's going to be the Trivia Henderson show. That's going to be very, very interesting to see because that has been disappointing to say the least. His usage so far this season, so I really want to see what he can do if he can handle the pressure and if he can perform because yeah, a couple fantasy leagues where I got him, and it's not working out super hot right now. So I really, really hope this is a breakout performance for him. So let's go, Travion. Let's see what you got.
Me too. My Travion Henderson shares are through the roof, and I can't wait. Finally, we've been gifted by the football gods. Mike Vrabel cannot take this from us. He is
Yep.
going to have to play Henderson and play him a lot, give him the rock, and let him cook. I can't wait to see it happen, especially against the Falcons defense that has actually struggled on the ground, stopping the run. So the next
If he
game.
fumbles this week, I think we can all agree that the Patriots starting running back just has a curse on them because I don't know what's going on. He fumbled last week. Ramondre's fumbled multiple times. Antonio Gibson fumbled once. I don't know. Something's going on with Patriots running backs. Hold on to the football.
Hold the football. Please, please,
Yep.
please, please hold the football. The next game on the list here is another one I'm targeting, and I will be honest, I'm going to keep this one really, really short. I, we talked about it last week. These 14-point spreads are as high as books generally tend to go in the NFL.
Mhm.
This is another one of those games, like we talked about last week when the Colts played the Titans and we were unafraid of taking 14, and that ends up working out. This is another situation in that regard. New Orleans heading into LA to take on the Rams. Rams minus 14 points. Game total on this one, about 43.5 points. I am in on the Rams covering 14 points, and I do not think it will be anywhere even remotely close. The Rams are 5-1 against the spread as the favorite this season. The Saints' average margin of defeat on the road this year is 18.3 points. I do not see a world where Tyler Shuck is going to come in here and do anything to this Rams defense coming off of a bye. The Rams are second in EPA per dropback allowed, fourth in pressure rate, and they're getting back Puka Nakua. This
Yep,
team was
that's a big one.
this team was already strong. They were still good on offense, even when Puka was down. They put up, what was it, 37 last week, I think. 37 on, or not last week, the week before, week 7, on the road in Jacksonville. Yeah, 35-7 on the road
That was
in
a London game.
Jacksonville.
Yep.
You know, I, I'm I'm in. I'm in. The Rams are going to be a hard team to beat, and when you're Tyler Shuck, who we've talked about numerous times, is a 26-year-old rookie with an injury history, and to put it nicely, accuracy issues. I don't think that this one is going to be anywhere near close. Give me LA in the 14. V, are you seeing anything in this one? I want to move on this one quick because we have a really good game to break down next. So,
No, I think you're totally right. This is my survivor pick this week, the Rams, and yeah, getting Puka back is going to be huge. If you're throwing 5 touchdowns with him off the field, what are you going to do when he's on the field against a worse defense? And yeah, Saints they were nice and competitive to start the season, but Rattlers play fell off, and they just cannot run the ball. The drop off for Kamara this season and the entire rushing attack has been very disappointing to say the least. And if you're not going to run the ball, it's going to be tough to do a lot of other things with that offense and given the guys that they have. And their defense, played as well as you could have hoped last week against the Bucks. They really didn't give up much, only one offensive touchdown and then 3 50-yard field goals. So I mean, you played well, but if your offense isn't gonna, do their part, it's just gonna be a tough situation. So yeah, totally makes sense to take the Rams here.
yeah, yeah, it hey, when it comes to, I hate to say it because, you know, they did look more competitive early in the year. They did have
Yeah.
some games there where they played well. And, it was something that, hey, they might be able to find some value on some lines like this. Like, I remember us talking about it there about that week 4 range. We said, hey, they might have some value in some lines here. And that that didn't end up
Yeah, that's just gone
panning
overboard
out.
now.
And, unfortunately, they did have to win a game against the Giants. and ruin my shares of them going winless this season. But they're still likely looking at maybe the first or second pick now, especially after the Jets won. So
Yeah, they got a real chance. Interesting to see what quarterback they're going to take next year.
yeah, yeah. We're gonna give up on Shuck right off the rip.
I would.
The next game, the marquee game of the week. Everyone waits for this one. Everyone loves this one. We have the Kansas City Chiefs heading into Buffalo to take on the Bills. Again, we talked about it earlier. The Chiefs have been white hot. -1.5 on the road here. Game total on this one, 52.5 points. V, tell me which side you're leaning on.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking the Chiefs on the road at -1.5. The Kansas City Chiefs are all the way back. They should be the number one team in pretty much any power ranking you see right now because they are just playing very, very good football and they're healthy now. That's been the big key for them. Let's start with Mahomes, though. He's been playing fantastic. 3 or more passing touchdowns in 4 of his last 5 games. Also has a couple rushing touchdowns during that 5-game span. The return of Rashee Rice has been so huge for that offense. 16 catches on 19 targets for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns in the 2 games since he's returned. That's phenomenal production. The defense has been lights out for the Kansas City Chiefs. They've allowed 24 total points over their last 3 games, 17 to the Lions, 0 to the Raiders, and then 7 last week on Monday night to the Commanders. They're allowing just 16.4 points per game this year. That is the second fewest in the league, behind only the Houston Texans. And they're allowing the third fewest passing yards per game and the 11th fewest rushing yards per game. So they're doing a very nice job on both sides of the ball. Moving over to Buffalo and their offense, they've been very up and down this season. They've had 5 games where they've scored at least 30 points, but then they've also had 2 games where they scored 20 or fewer points. So obviously, we know what they've done over the last few years, so you expect it to be more of them being a high-powered offense and being able to do this consistently. But if you look at the teams who they put those points up against, you're talking about the Jets, the Dolphins, the Saints, the Panthers. Those are obviously bottom tier teams in the NFL right now. So when they do have to go up against much better teams, much better defenses, what are they going to be able to do in this current iteration of their offense? It's going to be very interesting to see. Josh Allen, he looked phenomenal to start the season, but again, he had those 2 games where they lost, where he just had some uncharacteristic play, turning the ball over, taking some really bad sacks that you just haven't seen from him since his early part of his career. And even last week, they won in a blowout, but he took a really bad sack early in that game where he was just scrambling all the way around. He was going left, going right, going back around, and just taking a bad sack when he could have easily just thrown the ball away. So, just going to be really interesting to see, can he bounce back, and why are some of those things happening? I'm just very curious to know what is it that's happening to him that's making him kind of play in a way that we haven't seen for the last several years from him. And then moving on to Buffalo's defense, very suspect. They've allowed the second fewest passing yards per game, but they've allowed the second most rushing yards per game. And that's been a big concern. That's kind of where they've had a lot of struggles. They haven't played the best quarterbacks. I think I mentioned some of those teams: the Jets, the Saints, the Panthers, guys like that. So that probably inflates some of their pass defense numbers. So it's going to be interesting to see what
Right.
happens when they play better quarterbacks. We saw what Drake May did to them a few weeks ago. He had a very solid outing. They couldn't really stop him too much. Isaiah Pacheco has been ruled out for the Chiefs, so it's going to be interesting to see if what Kareem Hunt and rookie Brashard Smith can do, if they can take advantage of this weak Buffalo rush defense. Some other injuries to note: Trey Smith questionable for this game. He missed last week on Monday night. Hopefully he can play in this one. He's obviously a key piece in that offense, one of the best linemen in the game. And then for the Bills, they lost Ed Oliver last week, tore his biceps. He has been placed on injured reserve. And then Daquan Jones and Shaq Thompson are listed as questionable for the Buffalo defense as well.
Yeah, and I think you said a great piece of that there too is that one of the bets that I'm actually liking this week is Mahomes to go over 24.5 completions. Part of it is because I don't really think that they're going to try to, load up a bunch of carries, frankly, because I do think that this Bills defense, those numbers are inflated. They've allowed the second fewest completions in the NFL, but that
Mm-hmm.
becomes because they've played teams that are not passing teams. They have their 24th in pass play rate faced, and they're just not that great in coverage either. They're not great on the ground. They're not great in coverage. And one of the things that we've seen is look at this. You have the Ravens, the Jets. It's been teams where they, you know, like the Saints, New England, sure, but you have Carolina. Like those are teams that are running the ball. Like
Yeah.
New England is one that's throwing. The Saints were one that are throwing quite a bit. Every other team on this list, or the Dolphins are throwing a little bit, but when we talk about the bottom 5 teams in pass play rate, it's literally Carolina, the Jets, and Baltimore. So that's one of those things that's going to be, an interesting case study of how this defense can be attacked, because you're right. And when we see a lot of this, you know, we've seen this matchup a lot. Big shout out to the
Every year,
NFL.
literally every year, multiple
Every
times a
single
year.
year, multiple times a year, once in the regular season and in the playoffs, pretty much every year, if we're lucky. They've had 9 matchups in the Allen Mahomes era, 5 in the regular season, 4 in the playoffs. And of those games, the Bills have held the edge in the regular season. They have 4 consecutive wins and covers, including their win last year in Buffalo, 30-21. But really, it's this Chiefs team that's had an advantage, because when we see that, a lot of it's come from the postseason, but they haven't. Anytime they're a favorite in this game, it's a big sign. It's a big sign, especially when the market is fully in agreement that we are saying the Chiefs are -1.5, -2 point favorites in Buffalo, and it's because of this defense. And in those matchups where they're favored, the Chiefs are 4-2 against the spread. So I'm going to be taking them as well, -1.5 here. And the big thing too being is that they're back. They are so back right now. They are playing great defensively, and they look like not only do they look back offensively, they look 2021 back. This looks like the
Yeah, just so
best.
many weapons, man.
This is the best we've seen their offense play in so long. And that's just like you said, just so many weapons. When we're talking about that, Travis Kelsey doesn't even have to be their top weapon, and hasn't been for a while, and it does not matter in the slightest. They can throw the ball around to a number of receivers, which makes it a little bit difficult to know exactly which receiver is going to, like, you want to bet the overs on every week. But in that case, just bet the Mahomes overs, man, because he's going to
Yeah.
be, even at high numbers, it's still going to be undervalued in a lot of instances, because they are throwing the ball a lot and they are absolutely gashing teams. And I can't wait to see this one, uh, you know, come to blows. It's going to be a good one.
Should be phenomenal.
We're so lucky to have these games every single week, man. Or I mean, every single year. And the last one on our list for today, for this week, is a primetime matchup. I was almost going to say awesome. It will be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah.
We have the Arizona Cardinals heading into Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Cowboys here about 2.5 to 3.5 point favorites, depending on where you're shopping. Looks like the game total on this one as high as 54.5 in this one. So a lot of potential for scoring in this. I mean, frankly, I think 54.5 is a bit rich for
It's a lot of points.
for for this game, but
Yeah.
uh I know that you have a lean on the spread. V, tell me which
Yep.
side you're riding with in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking the Cowboys to cover in this one. I got it at -2.5. Let's start with the Arizona side of the ball. It's looking like it's probably going to be another Jacoby Brissett starting this one. Kyler Murray has been limited in both days, and just based off the reports that are coming out in practice, it seems like he's kind of more hanging out the backups right now and not really taking snaps with the first team offense. So it kind of seems like it's leaning towards another Brissett start here. He's been good though. Jacoby Brissett has in his 2 starts this year. 275 or more passing yards in both games, 4 total touchdowns, 2 turnovers, and has a really good connection with Trey McBride. McBride has produced a lot more in the 2 games with Brissett than he had in the previous several games with Kyler Murray. So that's a positive. Major issue though for the Arizona offense is their run game has just been a massive disappointment, especially based off what we saw them do last year. Arizona running backs are averaging 78 rushing yards per game this year. They have a great matchup against a Dallas defense that's along the fourth most rushing yards per game. But I just don't have a lot of confidence in that running back room to take advantage of that matchup. They just don't have guys who inspire too much confidence, especially given that their top 2 guys are down to James Conner and Trey Benson. So, yeah, if they can find something in the running game, then they could have a solid day in this game. But I just don't see that happening because it's just not working out right now. And then moving over to the Dallas side of this one, you spoke about home and away splits for the Falcons earlier. I don't know if there's a more extreme split for any team, home versus away, than the Cowboys. It's just been crazy. At home, they are 2-0-1, and they have scored at least 40 points in all 3 home games. On the road, they're 1-4, and they've scored 27 or less in all but one of those games. Their offense right now is at full strength with the return of CeeDee Lamb. They were not able to overcome the Denver pass rush last week, but they should have a much easier time against an Arizona defense that ranks in the bottom 6 in both sacks and pressure rate. And this Arizona defense is also allowing the 8th most passing yards per game. This should be a massive Dak Prescott game. I think he's going to be able to throw the ball up all over the field with CD and Pickens. We'll see hopefully a nice bounce back game for Jake Ferguson after he got held catchless last week. And then obviously, we've talked about it multiple times already this year, but Javonte Williams and what he's been able to do has been phenomenal. So, yeah, I think this should be a solid, easy Cowboys win. Getting less than 3 in this one is kind of a slap in the face to them. They should feel pretty disrespected at that. Being at home, playing against a bad Arizona team, you should be able to win by multiple possessions in this game. So give me the Cowboys here.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. When we talk about Arizona, what made them such a great team to bet, and this is something we've talked about a lot this year. Something that made them a great team to bet was their ability to run the football. And they
Mm-hmm.
just cannot do that this year. And a big reason why is because Clayton Adams went to Dallas. Dallas's OC Clayton Adams was the run game coordinator or the offensive coordinator, run game coordinator, one of those, offensive line coach for sure for the Cardinals. And
Mm-hmm.
it's in a way, it's a payback game. It's gonna be a revenge game for him, and he's gonna go out there and they're gonna run the ball really, really well against this Arizona team. I think that that's also one of the things that really goes underappreciated in Dallas. And I know that it's something that is talked about, but obviously it's easy to get overshadowed when Dak Prescott is playing as well as he is on a regular basis. But a big thing is that this team can run the football very well, and the Arizona Cardinals are not going to be able to run the football well. And granted, Jacoby Brissett's actually been debatably more productive than Kyler was while he was in there. But what we
Yeah.
have seen too is that when you can't run the ball for them and they continue to just cycle through running backs, I'm pretty sure Michael Carter got cut and put back onto the practice squad, and now they're rolling
Yeah.
with Bam Knight. And I, I don't quite get the logic of what they're sort of trying to approach in the run game right now because I mean, frankly, I don't know if it's the back. Like the specific back is not the issue because James Conner wasn't even really playing all that well, when he was in there, and it's been a really tough go for them. And I don't see this one being very close either. And you also said it with the home and away splits. Dallas has been just phenomenal. They play as good as anybody at home, and they really love to play in front of that crowd, and that crowd shows up for them there. And you know, b- I thought that last week they were going to be able to figure out some more things against Denver, but at the end of the day, they didn't, and that's the way that it goes. But again, like you said, 40 at home 40 at home, 40 at home. It's like
It's wild.
it's not even close. So now they're going to be at home again, and I think they're going to be playing at their best. So definitely agree with you on that one as well. And that does it. That's it for us. That is a great slate of games, a lot of value on there for us. And
Mhm.
of course, we're going to have more picks over in the Discord. So make sure you guys, like I said, become a member at importantnonsense.com. That's how you get access to our Discord. And there we put in all of our picks for the week, as well as all the fantasy guys in there answering questions, start sits, everything like that. And of course, check out all the shows that we have here, importantnonsense.com or at nonsenseff on Twitch. You know, Jason, he does a bunch of shows. He's live right before Thursday night. He's live right before Sunday, giving you guys start sit advice and everything you would need to go bring home your fantasy championship as we start heading down the stretch. Like, these games are starting to matter. And, you know, unless you're like me in our dynasty league where I forgot to sign a quarterback in free agency and have just been riding on whims and am in now 1-7 mode on our dynasty league. But I'll be back next year, V, as soon as
Yeah,
I get
who's the
a
number one pick in Dynasty next year? I haven't even looked that far, and I'm probably going to be right up there with you in the top 5 somewhere. So who are we taking early next year in
I don't
Dynasty?
even I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure at this point. Probably gonna have to be who
Julian Love out of Notre Dame probably is. That's who I'm thinking
yeah.
top of my head. But we're gonna have to do some scouting here. There's only a few weeks left in the regular season for college football. Let's get our scouting hats on. We got to find some
We're
gems
gonna
in
have to
there.
find some gems. You know, maybe I have to go and grab some Fernando Mendoza for
Ugh,
you know
I don't
for my
know. I don't know.
quarterback. The next Jets quarterback, Fernando Mendoza.
Ugh, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit when you said next shit's quarterback. Oh my god.
Well, that does it for us for week 9V. It was a pleasure doing business with you again, my friend. Back same time next week, everybody, 8 p.m. Eastern. Check us out, importantnonsense.com. That's how you become a member. Get over into our Discord. And yeah, V, I think that about does it. You have any parting words for the folks at home?
No, I think we covered everything. Should be a really, really fun slate of games. Everybody enjoy, and yeah, come on in the Discord. We'll have a lot of picks in there, and we can talk, chat, whatever you guys want to do. So hopefully, we'll see everybody in there.
Yep. And until next time, everybody, good night.